I'm Eric Fiechter. I am a lawyer admitted to practice in Switzerland. The law firm I work with now, where I'm of counsel, is the oldest law firm in Switzerland. It's from 1834, and it has had 5 generations of lawyers, of de Gut lawyers, before the generation of my brother and some of his friends took over the law firm. It's actually older than the Swiss federal state, and it's older than the Geneva Republic with its present setup. Maybe just a few words about myself and my family. It shows how the world really changed over the last century. My family lived in the same valley in central Switzerland for 500 years. My grandfather was the first one to move to another state within Switzerland as Switzerland was opening up for movements within Switzerland. And my father was the first one who went abroad to Scotland to learn the language, and he opened up really to the world. And at my generation, both myself and my brother, we studied outside Switzerland in the USA, and we lived outside Switzerland, first in America and now in Asia, as far as I'm concerned. So in just a few generations, it shows you how we lived in our own family, the opening up of the world. To understand the role of the Swiss Federal Supreme Court, you have to realize first that the judicial proceedings in Switzerland take place mostly at the state level. That's really where you have the first instance proceedings, often appeal proceedings, and in most cases things will stop at that level. And it's only in issues that are more complicated or where very important things are at stake, either principle or amounts in dispute, that things will go up to the Federal Supreme Court. And the Federal Supreme Court had initially really as a major function to ensure that federal law would be applied in a more or less uniform way across the country. Because when you have different cultures, you're bound to have very different approaches. And so it's a big challenge to ensure that federal laws are indeed applied in a predictable and uniform way across the country. It's actually even more within the various states, that you will find those differences. For instance, the state of Geneva, the canton of Geneva, has been influenced, particularly as far as procedure concerns, heavily by France. This is not at all the case in eastern Switzerland, for instance, or in Ticino. They have different traditions there. Of course, they're influenced by the countries surrounding them, but it's more the local culture, really. And that leads the courts, even today, even with a common procedural code, it leads them to apply the same federal law in different ways. In Geneva, for instance, they don't use the liberty that the procedural code gives the judge to manage each case according to its needs. The first things they did in Geneva when the new procedural law was introduced was to try to develop standard decisions and standard approaches that all judges could follow to ensure also that within the same court, the same approaches would be followed. But by doing that, you lose precisely the freedom that the new procedural code wanted to give each judge to adjust the procedure to its needs. In other cantons, for instance in Zurich, they can be much more creative and try to adjust to the needs. For instance, when you have to call a witness to testify, in Geneva they will follow the route, they will do the things in writing, they will send the things out and hope that someday they will receive an answer from the foreign country where that witness may live. In Zurich, they have decided to send an email, to the extent they have an email, and ask if the person would be willing to come and testify on a given date. This can then still be followed up by a formal request according to international standards. But if they do it, it's after having made sure that they will get the reply they need. There is one more thing I would like to tell you, which is special about Geneva. It's the only bar association within Switzerland that has a special section that welcomes foreign lawyers practicing in Geneva. So they are part of the Geneva Law Association, the Geneva Bar Association, and they have a special section within that where they can be members and where they can come together and exchange particular issues that are of more importance to themselves. This shows really the openness of the Geneva Bar and the tradition of having contacts well outside our borders. It's wonderful to have an association like yours because it helps bridge really the distance that sometimes can exist, geographical or also cultural, between a country like China and a collection of small states like Switzerland. It helps also bridge and open up the access in both ways for the members of the association or people who would contact it. I would like just to point out one thing. You have one big difference between China and Switzerland. China is a big country, like Germany is a big country in Europe, and big countries have a way to approach things which is very different from small countries. Small countries like Switzerland, Singapore have their characteristics, and they are entities that do not work completely independently from the surroundings, and from that point of view they share, all these small countries that are well organized, that have governments that function, have a way to approach things that can be very helpful for the big countries, but they are different. The small countries need to be more open, they need to go out towards the others, and they tend also to be more neutral, trying to have an approach that will raise confidence for all those who will seek their support. I'm very glad that you will be able to go to the Federal Supreme Court, and that one of the judges, Geneva judge in particular, said that she will try to find time to receive your delegation, because it is always a big privilege to be able to meet with the people who take the ultimate decisions in a country. It's a rare privilege, actually, particularly when you have a small group of judges that have a lot to do. But I hope all participants will enjoy that meeting and will get some more insights. We'll also know a little bit more about how the judges themselves see the challenges that we are facing with a world that has more and more exchanges across all continents. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all participants of the trip from China to this visit to Switzerland and in Geneva in particular, and I hope it will give them a chance to meet lots of interesting people and understand better how we see the world from this end of the continent, and I really wish them a great time here.